Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Small School Athletic Director on the Education Lady podcast. We'll be right back with this week's Small School Athletic Director, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, stay with me. Even if you've heard these messages before, these are all great companies. I'm sure a lot of you use them, but if you're not, okay, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our segment, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. You know, home campus is a platform, you've heard me say it before, you're going to use every day, whether it's scheduling, uploading results or scores, communication, and especially their athletic clearance and eligibility platform. It is just incredible. If you're not, you need to go to homecampus.com, talk to their folks, let them get you set up. Homecampus.com. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but my assistant AD did, and it was just a great experience. Very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's, along with thousands of others, you're going to get 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get started or for more info, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. We'd like to thank Gipper for their support. Your student athletes are on social media. That's a fact. And if you're not posting content to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your own program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds. That's Gipper.com. We'd like to thank Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the tools that Huddle provided. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to their website and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for everything: parents, coaches, teachers, kids, and the information that comes back from those surveys is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all of their events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. And we want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to I think this is going to be our final segment of our series, Small School Athletic Director. And we've got a really good show for you today. Our guest is Kari Avila. She is a certified athletic administrator, but soon to be a CMAA. She's a longtime AD at Salome High School in Arizona. We had her on our very first season of the Educational AD podcast. And she has, in that 3-year period, moved up the ladder, I guess. She is now the superintendent for the Bicentennial Union School District, of which Salome High School is part of. And she's not only going to provide her perspective as a small school AD, a very successful one, but also from her new position or current position as a school superintendent, things that she likes to see from the athletic director. So I'm looking forward to this. Kari, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me back. It's very exciting.
Well, again, I had you on my list of ADs to talk on the program, and it worked out perfectly. I know it's a busy time for everybody, so let's go ahead and jump in. Give our listeners just a little bit of your journey, from college to AD, and then now as superintendent, and then we'll hear more about your school district setup. So what's your origin story in 2 minutes?
Okay, in 2 minutes. I grew up here in Salome. I was a student athlete. I was involved in the clubs. We're a very small school, and we had about 185 students then. We have 121 right now. So from the area, and I went off and went to college. I did not play any sports in college, but I came back and I started here in the fall of 2006. As a parapro. My husband was deployed and it was a job opportunity, and I had just finished up my bachelor's degree, and I ended up staying. So I'm going into my 19th year. So over that time, I've taught English and Spanish and leadership. And in the fall of 2014, I became the athletic director. And then in the fall of 2022, so going into my third full school year, became the superintendent. So it's been a ride.
Yeah, and again, I've seen you you post pictures, you and I are Facebook friends and things like that. I've seen pictures of the school and the community and the events. I mean, it is quintessential small town, small school. And again, that's where I got my start as an athletic director in Oregon, of all places. So you have a very unique perspective to share. During your time as the athletic director, what were some things, whether it's organizational or leadership, that you found to be helpful sitting at the AD's desk to help you as a small school AD?
Sure. So when I first started, I had, and I think I mentioned this when I was on your podcast before, my number one thing was networking. It was a challenge. I had coached volleyball. I coached volleyball for 15 or 16 years. I'd been the softball coach. I had assisted with basketball. So I was in the department, but not in the administrative part of it. And so the superintendent that hired me to be the athletic director had been the AD before. And whenever I made contact with some other ADs, and he said, don't be afraid to reach back out to them. So anytime I had a question, I had those people that I could call across the state, and a lot of them were in small schools. Now, I would recommend networking with anybody, big or small school, because even though you might feel alone in what you're doing, or there are things that are unique to small schools. I just went to the state conference, and I'm sitting in a school with 5 and 6A ADs, and they're facing some of the same challenges that we are. So just not being afraid to think out of the side of the box, but get those contacts, and because you're probably, if the longer you're in the job, you're going to become one of those contacts and mentors for someone else. They're going to reach out, and you're going to have those. You're going to go, well, I know who I called, and I have an answer for you. So networking, number one.
Yeah, and I've said this many times. It's so important. In fact, when I speak to ADs now or coaches, I tell them it's probably the single most important and one of the easiest things that you can do to help your career. And it's something that I failed to do until late in my career. I didn't want to sound like I didn't know what I was doing or that I needed help, and not realizing that ADs can't wait to help other AD. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, back in your AD days, can you share a situation or an event where reaching out and talking to that mentor or part of your network paid dividends, where had you not done that, the event might have gone south? Anything come to mind where that mentor or network person really helped you out?
Yes. So my go-to person, and he knows it, and I think I said it on the last podcast, was Lee Hawes from Fort Thomas. That was one of my first, whether he liked it or not, he became that person for me. And just facing challenges, and in Arizona, we're pretty spread out, and even in the regular season, we're traveling far. And so just with scheduling, showing up and advocating for scheduling, where you might be on the road for 6 hours, 8 hours getting to a game. He really taught me that you need to speak up when you're in those meetings. And if you don't want to be put in a certain region, that was one of the first meetings I went to as an AD, was a football scheduling meeting. And so I met everybody, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. But we were going to get put in a region that was not good for our school. It would not be good for our coaches. It wouldn't have been good just overall. And just speaking up in that meeting and saying, hey, we don't want to be in that region. It's not a good fit for us. We were willing to join another region with more travel. But just not being afraid to speak up, I guess. So maybe that's not a specific situation, but that was some good advice I got that helped me over the 10 years that I was the AD. So.
Oh yeah, no, those first scheduling meetings. So again, it's like anything new. If you haven't done it, you have no clue. But
Yeah.
those can be particularly intimidating. Great example. Let's go and shift gears. You're a superintendent now, so you're in charge of schools on a global perspective. What are some things that you have found to be helpful for you in your job that maybe you can pass on to our listeners, who are primarily athletic directors, that
Right.
they can do to help their superintendent out?
Definitely. So communicate and advocate. Those are the two big things for any AD. You've got to communicate with your administrators, your school board. You have to advocate for your programs, your coaches, your students, and in turn your community. But you need to advocate for yourself and your position to be able to support those programs and those students. So like I had mentioned before, when we were talking, I was fortunate that I had two administrators that were very supportive of athletics and the extracurricular programs. That's not always the case. So it's very important that you are knowledgeable and can advocate. So I went to the state conference this weekend, and for the 1A school or 1A conference, we have 45 schools, 23 athletic directors were in attendance. And last year, I think we had 14. So it's important for us to communicate the importance of attending those things, the need for continued education, the networking, participation in your region, your conference or league, what division, whatever it's called, where you live, and just attending those events. And as an AD, you need to be informed. Your administrators and your board, they want to know what you know. They want to know what's going on. So being able to say, well, I need to attend these things. I need to be there. If Zoom is an option, it's great. But if you can be there in person, you need to attend. And that was the first advice that was given to me by my administrator, is show up, be visible, have a voice, attend in person whenever possible. Kind of just get out there. And I think that's how I've been fortunate enough to, connect with you, just having that network of people and having this opportunity. Take advantage of the opportunities at your state and national level and bring those things back to your school. And one of the things for us, like the region meetings, we have a region meeting and we only have one, 2 or 3 times a year. And our region chair says, do you have any special events or traditions? How can we accommodate your, like we get a home football game during our Founders Day because we've communicated that. So showing up, and then, you can take that back to your school, to your administrator and say, hey, look, because I was there in person, I was able to get us this homecoming game, or I got us a bye week because our current AD is a very experienced athletic director. We're fortunate to have him. And he was at a school that had tribal traditions. And so they needed the week off for football. They couldn't have a game. And because he showed up to that meeting, we all knew, hey, they can't play on that day. If he hadn't been there, he might have just gotten whatever schedule. And that creates problems for everybody, I think, as we know, when somebody's going, hey, we can't play that week and it's football. So just being there and showing up and having that information and going back to the communication and being able to advocate for your school, where your administrators appreciate that you've done that for your students and your coaches. I know that in small schools, one of the biggest things, like in Arizona anyway, most of us or most of the athletic directors are teachers. So it is hard to get away from school because you have to get a sub. So that might make it challenging. So being able to highlight the benefits to your administrators of, whatever data or resources you have to say, this is why it's important for me to be involved in this. This is why I need to attend in person. And how is the payoff bigger for your school for you to be at that meeting or conference versus being in the classroom? And obviously there are going to be times that you have to be on campus, but just maintaining that open communication of, you know what, we can get a sub for me today because this is how it will benefit us in the long run. So just being knowledgeable, staying informed, and keeping those lines of communication open. I had to go to the board a few years ago. We had an issue with social media. And so we needed to add a social media component to our athletic handbook. And so I went and spoke, and they were asking, like, why is this important? And I kind of had to share credibility there. So like when I talked earlier about advocating for yourself as the athletic director, when I attended that meeting, I kind of had to take a step back and think about my credibility to my school board. And they didn't know about the CAA or me going to the state conference. And so I said, you know what, I had to give myself some credibility. And I hadn't really shared that with them before. I said, I have my CAA, and these are the people that I've talked to, and I name dropped, bigger districts and said, they gave this to us. This is recommended. It's been reviewed by attorneys, whatever. But it was things they didn't know that were important or were even current issues. They were not aware that having a social media policy in their athletic handbook was even needed. Because, if you think of your school boards, they're not necessarily on campus day to day. They don't know what your coaches are dealing with, or, the issues with teenagers. And that's what it was. It was a teenager. So just keeping everybody informed.
Yeah, and you bring up such a great point. You and I talked about this. You mentioned that when you first came to Salome, your superintendent was the previous athletic director. And so they knew what an AD went through. Your current athletic director, we should probably get them on the show too.
Yeah.
Their superintendent, who's you know what an AD goes through. I was very fortunate in my career. My principals, the soups, most of them had come from that teacher, coach, AD, or principal, and then on to that level. But today, and this isn't a slam on anybody, it's just the way it is. Many in upper administration, they were former elementary school teachers or subject matter teachers, and they didn't have that firsthand experience in athletics. So you, as the AD, as Kari just said, you have to educate and advocate for your position, for your department, and everything else. So have that line of communication. Maybe it's just sending them an email once a week. Hey, here's the games, home games that we have. If you want to come and cheer on our student athletes, maybe it's a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, but start that process of, and Kari just did a great job of explaining how she did it, of establishing yourself as that athletic professional. Because I'll tell you, the courts do look at you as the athletic director as that professional, so you better be. But start that communication. Let your AD, let your principal, let your superintendent know all the hours you put in, all the events you cover each year, all the miles that you travel, all the parent phone calls that you field. Not to complain or whine, but just to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing. And, hey, we appreciate your support. Anything else that you can share in this segment, Kari? I know I'm going to the well really deep here, that you haven't already shared to the listeners. Great stuff. Can we hit you up for one more tip?
I think what you just said, how can your administrators support you? Let them know what you need. Maybe it's budgetary, and they'll do their best for you. But it might be when we go to our events around the state here, it's not uncommon to see an administrator, running the chains at a football game or doing tickets. Like, your administrators in small schools understand. Everybody here is a coach, a club advisor, a class advisor. You know, a lot of our coaches coach multiple things. So they know that everybody's filling multiple roles. Let them know how they can support you. How can they show up to those events? And sometimes it is just something as simple as, hey, we need a ticket taker, or we need somebody to operate the scoreboard tonight. Or maybe it is something much bigger. We need some equipment for safety. So let them know what you need. How can they support you in their role?
Yeah. Just again, tremendously valuable information from somebody who's been a very successful AD and now someone who supervises an AD. Kari, I don't want your email to start blowing up, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, either as an AD or even as a upper administrator, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
They can reach me by email at kavila, Avila, at Salome, SALOMEHS.org.
Okay. And again, that's, go ahead. That's the Bicentennial Union High School District in Arizona.
Mhm.
Kari, great seeing you again. All the best as you continue with, this season and the school year. And are we going to see you in Austin?
I don't know. I would like to go. I would like to, but yep.
Well,
I would encourage everybody to go that can. So you need to get to that.
Well, let us know if you're going to be going so we can certainly connect. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me back.
For listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our podcasts to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Also, I haven't mentioned this a lot, but every single one of these 36 interviews, and this is number 36, are going to be going into a book called Small School Athletic Director. We have transcribed the presentations, and that book is available. Actually, it's available right now on Amazon. So check it out. Small School Athletic Director. Proceeds from all the books help go toward our FIAAA scholarship fund. So pick up one of the other books as well. And we will see you hopefully at the NADC conference next week in Austin, Texas. Thanks a lot. Hey, before we go, as always, we're going to give our sponsors one more shout out. Let's say thanks to Ohio University and their online master's program. Want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame touchscreen video consoles. Want to thank Gipper for their support. That's gipper.com. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Get a custom survey for your school. Home Campus. That's a platform you're going to use every day. Okay, I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to homecampus.com. Speaking of not saying anything more, Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider for schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Want to thank Snap Raise, the best, online fundraiser out there, and Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Thanks for listening to all of our segments for Small School AD. Hope you enjoy the book. Go to Amazon, just $9.99. And we'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.